hath said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt, they have done abominable works, there is none that doeth good. The Lord looked down from heaven upon the children of men, to see if there were any that did understand and seek God. They are all gone aside, they are altogether become filthy. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. Have all the workers of iniquity no knowledge, who eat up my people as they eat bread, and call not upon the Lord? There were they in great fear, for God is in the generation of the righteous. Ye have shamed the counsel of the poor, because the Lord is his refuge. Oh, that the salvation of Israel will come out of Zion. When the Lord bringeth back the captivity of his people, Jacob shall rejoice, and Israel shall be glad. Lord, who shall abide in thy tabernacle? Who shall dwell in thy holy hill? He that walketh uprightly, and worketh righteousness, and speaketh the truth in his heart. He that backbiteth not with his tongue, nor doeth evil to his neighbour, nor taketh up a reproach against his neighbour, in whose eyes a vile person is contemned, but he honoureth them that fear the Lord. He that sweareth to his own hurt, and changeth not, he that putteth not out his money to usury, nor taketh reward against the innocent, he that doeth these things shall never be moved. May God add his blessing to the reading of his word. Let's sing the book of Acts, chapter 10. There was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of the band called the Italian band, a devout man, and one that feared God with all his house, which gave much alms to the people, and prayed to God always. He saw in a vision, evidently about the 9th hour of the day, an angel of God coming into him, and saying unto him, Cornelius. And when he looked on him, he was afraid, and said, What is it, Lord? And he said unto him, Thy prayers and thine alms are come up for a memorial before God. And now send men to Joppa, and call for one Simon, whose surname is Peter. He lodgeth with one Simon a tanner, whose house is by the seaside. He shall tell thee what thou oughtest to do. And when the angel which spake unto Cornelius was departed, he called 2 of his household servants, and a devout soldier of them that waited on him continually. And when he had declared all these things unto them, he sent them to Joppa. On the morrow, as they went on their journey, and drew nigh unto the city, Peter went up upon the housetop to pray about the 6th hour. And he became very hungry, and would have eaten. But while they made ready, he fell into a trance, and saw heaven opened, and a certain vessel descending unto him, as it had been a great sheet knit at the 4 corners, and let down to the earth, wherein were all manner of 4-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. And there came a voice to him, Rise, Peter, kill and eat. But Peter said, Not so, Lord, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean. And the voice spake unto him again the 2nd time, What God hath cleansed, that which was sent from Cornelius, had made inquiry for Simon's house, and stood before the gate, and called, and asked whether Simon, which was surnamed Peter, were lodged there. While Peter thought on the vision, the Spirit said unto him, Behold, 3 men seek thee. Arise therefore and get thee down, and go with them, doubting nothing, for I have sent them. Then Peter went down to the men which were sent unto him from Cornelius, and said, Behold, I am he whom ye seek. What is the cause wherefore ye are come? And they said, Cornelius, the centurion, a just man, and one that feareth God, and of good report among all the nation of the Jews, was warned from God by an holy angel to send for thee into his house, and to hear words of thee. Then called he them in, and lodged them. And on the morrow Peter went away with them, and certain brethren from Joppa accompanied him. And on the morrow, after they entered into Caesarea, and Cornelius waited for them, and had called together his kinsmen and his friends. And as Peter was coming in, Cornelius met him, and fell down at his feet, and worshipped him. But Peter took him up, saying, Stand up, I myself also am a man. But as he talked with him, he went in, and found many that were come together. And he said unto them, Ye know how that it is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come unto one of another nation. But God hath showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. May God add his blessing to that further reading of his word, and grant us all understanding.
It's entitled God's Great Promise. The reading is from Acts chapter 7 and verse 1. Quote, The high priest said to Stephen, Is all this true? I have been preaching from Acts. It's a book about the early church and the apostles' work. Today, I want to focus on Stephen's last sermon. Today, I want to focus on Stephen's last sermon. I will remind you what happened in chapter 6. served God well, managing the money for poor Christian people who had no home and no job. Later, Stephen worked closely with the apostles. God gave Stephen powers to do miracles. Stephen preached the gospel, but the Jewish people hated him. They arrested him and dragged him to the Sanhedrin Council. An important group of Jewish men. Some men lied about Stephen. They said that Stephen criticized Moses and the Old Testament law. Acts chapter 7, verse 1. Again. The high priest said to Stephen, Is all this true? The Jews challenged Stephen. How did Stephen reply? He preached to them. He did not defend himself. He preached the gospel and challenged their hearts. Question. When Stephen challenged the Jews, why did they not interrupt? Why did they not stop him? Answer. Because God gave special authority to Stephen. Chapter 6 verse 15 says, Everyone there in the council meeting was staring at Stephen. They saw that his face looked like the face of an angel. This means they could see that Stephen had special authority. They could not interrupt him. Chapter 7, verse 2 and 3. Stephen answered, My Jewish fathers and brothers, listen to me. How great and glorious God appeared to Abraham, our ancestor, when he was in Mesopotamia. This was before he lived in Haran. God said to him, Leave your country and your people and go to the country I will show you. Stephen began to preach. How did he begin? He went back to the beginning of the Jewish religion, to Abraham. God called Abraham and told him to leave his home in the city called Ur. Abraham obeyed God's call. He left Ur and he began to travel. He did not know where he was going, but he believed God had strong faith. God's call is the same today. God's call is the same today. God calls me and says, leave your sin, leave your old life. I will lead you to a new life. I do not know what my new life will be like. Maybe I am afraid because I love my sin and I do not want to give it up. But I obey. I believe God and I follow Him. Question: why did Abraham believe God? Answer: because he saw God's glory. I am the same. When God calls me, I see His glory. How? Do I see a bright light or an angel? No. I see my sin. The Holy Spirit helps me to see my sin. And when I see how much sin I have, I understand how much glory God has. God shows me a small part of His glory. This means He helps me to understand who He is. When I understand who God is, I must obey Him. I cannot ignore Him. This is very strange. But why? Because I cannot explain why I suddenly understand who God is. Maybe I have been coming to church for many years. Maybe I have been learning the Bible for many years. But before, I never understood. I never asked God to give me new life. I never saw my sin. Then one day, I suddenly understand. I see my sin. I know I must leave my old life and ask God for a new life. Why? What happened? Did I learn something new? Did I read a part of the Bible I'd never read before? No. God called me. This is what happened. I cannot ignore God's call. Some people say, I am a Christian, but they have never heard God's call. They have never left their old sin. They have never asked God for new life. Those people say, I come to church. I read the Bible. I sing hymns. I pray. I talk with Christian people. And all of these things are good, but these things do not help me to become a Christian. I must hear God's call, and I must obey. I must leave my old sin, ask God to forgive me, and give me new life. Verses 4 and 5. Quote, so Abraham left the country of Chaldea. He went to live in Haran. After his father died, God sent him to this place where he lives now. God did not give Abraham any of this land, not even a foot of it. But God promised that in the future he would give Abraham this land for himself and for his children. This was before Abraham had any children. Abraham obeyed God. He left his home and he started to travel. God led Abraham all the way to the promised land. But Abraham did not get the land for himself. Abraham had to wait. He knew that his family would get the land in the future. Christian people are the same. God gives us great promises. God says, I will give you the whole world. You will live with me in heaven. When? How? I must wait, the same as Abraham. Maybe people say, how do you know you will go to heaven? How do you know God will keep his promise? I say, I know because God has already helped me and blessed me. He's answered my prayers. I know he is there and he helps me and blesses me. So I know I will go to heaven in the future. I trust God and I believe him. This is God's great promise. This is the last promise that will come true. God promises me many things through life. He says, I will answer your prayers. I will help you. I will bless you. I will use your words to save people's souls. And I see all of these promises coming true. But one promise I will not see become true until I die. God says, I will bring you into heaven. I will give you a kingdom in heaven, and you will stay with me forever. What should I do? I should always think about God's great promise. The same as Abraham. God told Abraham, I will bring you into a country, but you will not get the country. Your children will get the country. Abraham was happy. Why? Because his children would get the promised land. Oh no, because his children would get the promised land. No. Abraham was happy because he knew God was using as an example. In Hebrews chapter 11, I can read about Abraham's attitude, Isaac's attitude, and Jacob's attitude. None of them got to the promised land. But they were happy. Why? Because they expected a better land from God. A land in heaven. The promised land was an example. The promised land taught them about heaven. They knew they would all get a home in heaven. This was God's great promise. Abraham always thought about God's great promise. Abraham did not focus on the promised land because he knew the promised land would not continue forever. Abraham focused on God's kingdom in heaven because this was God's great promise. Maybe I will have suffering and pain in this life. Doesn't matter. Maybe I will lose many things. Doesn't matter. Maybe I become very rich. Doesn't matter. Why? Because I know these things will not continue forever. I know I should expect better things from God. I think about God's great promise, my home in heaven. Verse 6. Quote, this is what God said to him. Your descendants will live in another country. They will be strangers. The people there will make them slaves and mistreat them for 400 years. Abraham knew that he should not expect to get the promised land soon. Why? Because God told him. God explained that his family would get the promised land far in the future. promised land itself was not important. The promised land taught Abraham about something more important. A home in heaven. Verses 7 to 9. Quote, "But I will punish the nation that made them slaves." And God also said, "After those things happen, your people will come out of that country. Then they will worship me here in this place." God made an agreement with Abraham. The sign of this agreement was circumcision. And so, when Abraham had a son, he circumcised him when he was 8 days old. His son's name was Isaac. Isaac also circumcised his son Jacob. And Jacob did the same for his sons, who became the 12 great ancestors of our people. These ancestors of ours became jealous of their brother, Joseph, and sold him to be a slave in Egypt. But God was with him. Stephen continued to explain the Jews' history. All the men on the council knew the Jews' history, but they did not understand. Stephen used the Jews' history to challenge those men. What happened to Joseph? When he was young, God gave him special dreams. God showed Joseph that he would save his family in the future. But Joseph's brothers hated his dreams. They were jealous because God was with Joseph. So they took him and sold him, and Joseph became a slave. But God controlled everything. God stayed with Joseph. And God used Joseph to save his family. How? Joseph became an important man. Later, there was no food. Joseph managed the food and made sure everyone had enough. Joseph's brothers visited him and asked for food, but they did not recognize him. What did Joseph do? Did he get revenge? No. Joseph gave his brothers. He brought his family to live in Egypt. Joseph's brothers rejected him, but God used Joseph to save them. Verses 17 to 21. The number of our people in Egypt grew. There were more and more of our people there. promise that God made to Abraham was soon to come true. Then a different king began to rule Egypt, one who knew nothing about Joseph. This king tricked our people. He treated them badly, making them leave their children outside to die. This was the time when Moses was born. He was a very beautiful child, and for 3 months his parents took care of him at home. When they put him outside, Pharaoh's daughter took him. She raised him as her own son. More trouble happened, but God did not forget his people. God did not forget his promise. God still planned to give the Jews the promised land. The Jews became slaves in Egypt, but God had chosen someone to save them. Moses. God cared for Moses. The Egyptian king was killing the Jewish baby boys. God made sure that Moses did not die. God made sure that Moses was safe in the king's palace. Verse 22. The Egyptians taught Moses everything they knew. He was powerful in all he said and did. God prepared Moses for his work in the future. God wanted Moses to lead his people. Verses 23 to 25. When Moses was about 40 years old, he decided to visit his own people, the people of Israel. He saw one of them being mistreated by an Egyptian, so he defended him. Moses hit the Egyptian to pay him back for hurting the man. But he hit him so hard that he killed him. Moses thought that his people would understand that God was using him to save them, but they did not understand. Moses knew about God's plan. Moses knew that God wanted him to lead the Jewish people. When Moses was 40 years old, he thought, I am ready to lead God's people. He went to go and find the Jewish people because he wanted to show himself. He wanted to help them. But God had a different plan. The Jewish people rejected Moses. God wanted Moses to wait. Verse 26 to 28.
Verse 26 to 28. The next day, Moses saw 2 of his own people fighting. He tried to make peace between them. He said, Men, you are brothers. Why are you trying to hurt each other? The man who was hurting the other one pushed Moses away and said to him, "Did anyone say you could be our ruler and judge? Will you kill me just as you killed that Egyptian yesterday?" So Moses tried again, but still the Jewish people rejected him. They did not want him. Why? Because it was not the right time. Verse 29. Quote, "When Moses heard him say this, he left Egypt. He went to live in the land of Midian, where he was a stranger. During that time that he lived there, he had 2 sons." End quote. Why did Moses leave Egypt? Was he afraid? No. Moses understood that it was not the right time. Moses travelled to a different country called Midian. He lived there for 40 years. Why? Because he was waiting for God to tell him when to go back and save his people. Moses knew that Midian was not his real home. He was a stranger. He knew he was staying for a short time, but he would soon leave. How old was Moses when God called him again? He was 80 years old. He was an old man. He was not young or strong. So why did God wait for so long before he called Moses again? Because God wanted to show Moses and the Jewish people that he was saving them, not Moses. When Moses went back to Egypt, no one respected him. No one remembered him. So everyone understood God saved the Jews, not Moses. I am the same. I preach the gospel and tell people about Jesus Christ. Who saves people? Who makes people listen? Is it me? No. It is God's work, not my work. God has called me, but he does not want me to think of new ways to preach the gospel. He does not want me to do special things and persuade people to follow Jesus Christ. Why not? Because everyone must see that it is God's work, not my work. How should I tell people the gospel? Should I use music or drama? No. I should preach the gospel and pray. These are the two commands in the Bible. I must finish. Stephen preached to the Sanhedrin Council. He reminded them about the Jewish history, how God helped them and saved them many times. I can learn from Stephen's preaching also. Number one, God calls people. Same as Abraham. God called him. I must check myself. Has God called me? Am I a true Christian? Number two, the world hates God's people. Same as Joseph's brothers. They hated him and they were jealous. The world will hate me and reject me. Number three, God will do his work. Same as Moses. God waited until the right time. Then he sent Moses. Moses was an old man. Means everyone could see that it was God's work. And number four, remember God's great promise. All those people were thinking about the promised land. But they knew that the promised land was just an example. All the true Christian people in the Old Testament were also thinking about heaven. That is God's great promise. May the Lord help us all to serve him and focus on him.